to see you. Missouri Saturday night over in Columbia, Missouri. Looking forward to our first SEC game, our first official road game, not at a neutral site. But we got our work cut out for us. Offensively, very explosive. 72 points last week, 815 yards. Drew Lock can make all the throws. I mean, the short ones, the intermediate, the long throws. He's got great arm talent. He does have escapability, scrambles to throw. Extremely talented at the skill positions, and Crockett and Whitner, both backs that we saw last year, fit what they do offensively very well. Mason, Moore, and Johnson are three receivers that are as good as in our league, and guys that can do a lot with it after the catch, or vertical threats down the field, catch a deep ball, and, of course, Drew throws the deep ball extremely well. But three big athletic tight ends. The lightest guy on the offensive line is 315, so they're massive up front. They do a nice job in the run game and also protecting, and the ball's out quick. I mean, he gets rid of the football. So work cut out for us on the defensive side of the ball. Defensively, Barry obviously is a head football coach and an outstanding coach and a defensive coach, and you know, he's running their defense, and they're very inexperienced defense. They only have 6 starters back, but Terry Beckner's as talented an inside player as there is in the country. 13, Brandon really flashed to me in the first ball game. A guy that got a lot of vertical penetration, and Jordan Harold's a guy that pass rush wise. So Barry will do a good job defensively. Those guys continue to bring on a very young group on the defensive side of the ball. Of course, their specialists are good, and the returners are outstanding. So we got our work cut out for us going on the road. We're looking forward to it. I'll open up for any questions.
Raise your hand. I'll get a microphone to you, David.
Will the running game, didn't have the greatest production last week. Right. Was that by design because of NC State's defensive line? And how much do you expect the running game to flourish this week?
Well, we wanted to get the ball in the perimeter early in the game. We wanted to throw the ball early in the game. The most expending thing you do as a player is rush the passer. And we were going to try and get their front tired. And we were very efficient in the first half offensively. We were outstanding. You come out in the second half, we have a short drive for a 3 and out. We throw the deep ball to Debo, I think on the second play of the series or third play of the series. So we're off the field immediately, and then we get the short field. We score in 3 plays, and then we didn't have as much production offensively from that point on. A lot of it, to me, had to go back to first down. We had some incompletions on first down, which put us in tough down and distance against a very good defense. So we need to run the ball better, but we only gave up 3 negative runs. So it wasn't that there was a lot of negative plays in the run game. So those were the only 3. But we certainly need to be more productive in the run game. There's no question.
Hey, well, how important is Jake Bentley's attitude and the enthusiasm that he brings to this team? And I'm wondering, can that sometimes be the difference between, especially in those close games, a win and a loss, a quarterback like that?
Well, I think playing ability has a lot more to do with the winning and losing than anything else. But I think day-to-day operation of your organization, whether you want him to be or not, and I'm not just talking about Jake, I'm talking about the quarterback position, that is the leader of your team because it affects everybody in the organization, offensively, defensively, special teams, coaching staff, everybody, for how that guy performs. And certainly having a guy that's a natural leader in that position is certainly a benefit for our program.
Let's go to the right, Rick.
Well, T.J. Brunson told us that you told him during the winter that you were going to give him more responsibility. Talk about what you saw in him when you were recruiting him and during the offseason and how he lived up to your expectations this past Saturday.
Well, he was kind of important. He's the first guy I went to see after the press conference. So I liked his tape a lot. I thought he flashed. I thought he played fast. I thought he played physical. Jay Fry's head coach, talked to former Gamecock, talked to him about what kind of person he was, and he said he checks all the boxes as far as everything you're looking for. And in my brief meeting with him, or extended meeting, I guess I would say, at Richland Northeast High School, you could see he had a lot of qualities you want in your Mike linebacker. And so having him as a freshman and seeing him grow and develop to see how important it is to him to play well was really neat. He's very hard on himself, in my opinion, too hard on himself at times. I told him I shouldn't have more confidence in you than you have in yourself. And I've had to tell him that several times. So But now is a guy that's got a lot more confidence in himself, a lot more belief in himself. And you saw him play Saturday. He plays fast, and he plays a very violent game. And I'm glad he's our Mike.
After the NC State game, you said that the way they kind of dinked and dunked gave you a little bit of trouble. Does Missouri do some similar stuff to that?
Well, they'll throw the vertical ball as well as anybody in the country. So you look at the explosive plays. The first play of the game last week was a screen, but it was for 65 yards after one missed tackle. So they're going to make you tackle well in space. But they do a really nice job in the RPOs and creating some things in the run game, but they create a lot of space in how they spread the field.
Well, the winner of this game gets a big silver trophy, the Mayor's Cup. What do you guys do with that thing when you win it? Is it around the building somewhere?
It's in our building, yeah.
What's the significance of that? Do you mention that to the guys at all about this trophy for this game?
Well, when the game's over, we'll talk about it.
How many similarities do you see in Drew Lock's game, Jake Bentley's game, being them? They're two very young quarterbacks in the same league.
Well, again, they throw the ball extremely well. Both guys can make all the throws. It's the touch throw, the long throws, obviously directing their offense at a high level. Certainly both guys are capable and have done it. So there's a lot of similarities as far as those things are concerned, and throwing the football and taking the ball to the right spots, there's no question.
Will, the offensive line played really well the other night. How much did you guys need to see that from a confidence standpoint for the offense?
Well, I think anytime, as I said after the game, as a football team, when you work extremely hard at something, you need to have some sort of return eventually. And the way you have a return in our profession's winning. And so obviously winning's important, but then to be able to go back and know that you blocked good people pretty well for most of the day, certainly gains you confidence as a player.
Coach, when you and your staff went back to watch the film and break it down, what were some of the minuses, maybe, especially in that first half? Was it technique, assignment, and what did you see in the second half? And obviously going into this week, what do you want to see an improvement of?
Defensively?
Yes, Coach.
Well, I think we lost our eyes a couple times on some bootlegs in the game in both man and zone. The third and fourth down, one third down conversion and a fourth down conversion was just poor eyes on the ball of where we needed to be. That kept some drive alive. I mean, that was the issue in the first half. You know, you talk in terms of snaps. You don't get off the field on third down, you're going to have snaps. We didn't give up a lot of explosive plays, but they were able to manage for manageable third down and distances, and then we weren't able to get off the field, and we obviously had a fourth down conversion as well. So I think that those were things to me that we had to tighten some things up coverage-wise that I feel like we did a better job of in the second half. But we rushed forward better, but there weren't as many timing throws because it was longer down and distances on third down. So when you're battling the first third down was 3rd and 10. I think the second third down was 3rd and 9. In both of those situations, the quarterback's going to hold the ball longer because the pattern distribution is going to be further down the field. So we're able to create 2 sacks in that situation. One was with a 3-man rush. So I think that helped us a little bit. We need to play the ball better in some situations down the field. When you're working yourself in phase on a receiver, you need to be able to play the ball. When you're able to work a back shoulder plays, what we call is you play out of phase and play through the hands and shoulder of the receiver in those situations, because it's hard to play the ball and look for it when they're throwing a back shoulder fade behind your neck. So those are some things that we always work on, because as much bump and run as we play, we're in those situations a lot. So we've got to be able to play the ball better in those situations. And we had a couple communication errors late in the game, critical situations that did not hurt us that certainly could have.
Coach Josh Heiber with Spurs and Feathers. You mentioned after the game on Saturday, Hayden Hurst and his contributions in the run game and blocking. How much do you see his role expanding going forward, especially in the pass game, and knowing that he won't have to block as much?
Well, I mean, he needs to continue to block well. I mean, that's going to be every week in the run game. That's part of his job as a tight end and what we do offensively. But we had some targets set up for him. Actually, the long throw to Debo was a throwback to Hayden, and we got flush from the pocket, and the throwback was open, and we had a couple screens set up. One wasn't very well timed, and the other one wasn't very well thrown. So we'll have targets for Hayden going into every game.
Hey, Coach, Debo just named the Special Teams Player of the Week. What do you want to see from him this Saturday night, especially going up against such an inexperienced secondary?
Well, I mean, again, he's a guy that we're going to have targets in the game and touches. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not about plays, it's about players. So let's get him the ball in multiple ways, and certainly in the return game is a way for us to do that. I'm certain that Barry and them will have a plan for him as far as the return game is concerned. But, you know, he needs to come out of the game touching the ball. He ought to be tired when the game's over. And, you know, but he's also a gunner for us, and he's wanting to be on kick. I mean, he likes playing the game. I mean, that's one of the things that one of his best talents has nothing to do with physical ability. It has to do with his mindset and his competitive edge. And so that's why he's a good player.
Will Missouri obviously put up some Popeye numbers against MO State in their tempo? Defensively, what is the biggest thing you have to do to get them out of that tempo and make them stretch a play out more?
Get off the field. And you eliminate tempo by getting off the field. Getting off the field on third down, and they'll go for it, depending on field position. A lot of fourth down situations, you got to get off field on fourth down. You got to create some turnovers and keep their defense on the field. So I think those are things you go into this game. But, their tempo is probably will be the fastest team we play this year. They're on average, in the high 20s as far as when the ball snaps. You're looking at probably a window of 12 to 17 seconds off the 40-second clock as the next snap's happening. So our guys got to have urgency to the line. You got to have your eyes in the right spots. They're going to spread the field on you, so you got to cover down, tackle in space, mix it up enough to where you're not giving them the same thing over and over again. And that's what happens in a lot of tempo situations. They vanilla defense up, and they know what they're getting.
What kind of a teaching tool can that last drive of the first half against NC State be? And after you watched kind of the film, what sort of stood out about that?
As far as
situational stuff and getting the guys to sort of, not give up that kind of drive, I guess.
Right. Well, I just ask them not to do it again. And, I wish it was that easy. Well, we did have a pass interference. It was a costly penalty on a long yardage situation on their sideline. And in that situation, I think you take every play, whether it was a very good play, and there's a lot of positives, and then you take negative plays. And I always tell the players, and they always say I'm negative all the time, but I'm not. It's just that the negative plays are the ones you're going to see again, because when somebody's scouting you, they're going to look at the plays that hurt you, and that's probably the type of things that you're going to see again. You'd have been out of our meeting if that thing had gone off, all right? So, but you've got to correct the negative plays, all right, because you're going to see those again. So there was individual plays within that series that obviously we could have executed better in those situations. And you try and be technical in your approach about what could you have done better in this situation? What could we have called better in this situation? And there was a couple things that, T-Rob and I talked about that we probably could have done differently in that drive. So that, again, you try and be technical in your approach in everything that happens in the game. It's not just about one drive, it's about multiple situations that occur in a game.
How much do you emphasize ball control? Because I know that when you have a team like Missouri that runs tempo like that, it can be easy to get kind of sucked into also having to score right away. How important is it to make sure you keep their defense on the field because they're going to have tempo with their offense?
Well, I think that you stay away from their tempo. Number one, defensively getting off field, as I talked about earlier. But offensively, you got to stay on the field. You got to maintain drives. You got to put pressure back on their offense. But time of possession has no regard in winning games. At the end of the day, it can be critical at times when you're playing too many snaps. But it's never been a stat that you can reflect on championship teams and look back and say it was because of time of possession. Or the other one misled stat is penalties. Some of the most penalized teams in the country win championships. I'm not saying penalties are okay. I'm just saying there's certain stats that get blown up in the public side that really aren't that important.
Coach, can you talk about your coaching staff and your team's ability to adjust in games, specifically that first half to the second half against NC State, and how that's going to help you guys against a pretty high-powered Missouri offense?
Well, that's part of what we try and do with them. You look on our sidelines, when the defense is on the field, the offensive coaches are coaching their players. When the offense is on the field, the defensive coaches are coaching their players. We're on the bench, and we're going over adjustments, and Coleman Hutzler does a fantastic job on special teams, making in-game, in-half, in-quarter adjustments as far as our special teams are concerned. That's part of what you do. It's really good when you have communication with your press box, and when you actually have a headset that works and you're able to have communication. Because a lot of times the reason why you wear headsets is because the people in the box can tell you what they see, because it's easier to see from the box than sometimes it is on the field. Does that make sense? And so when you have that communication, it's a really neat tool. And that's why this unbelievable thing in football is happening, that everybody wears headsets because they work most of the time. So it's easy to make adjustments when you actually have some communication from the box, is what I'm trying to say. There's a tad of sarcasm in with that.
So are you saying because we're in the box, we can see things a little bit better than you guys on the field?
Absolutely not. I wasn't referring to you.
What's
No,
that?
there's about 80,000 that know a lot more than I do on game day, but go ahead.
What stats that don't get blown up in public are really important in your mind?
Well, we talked to our football team about the ball. They named the game after it. Football. Being turnover margin is critical. Explosive play is critical. You take that combination every year in the NFL, those are the teams that are in the playoffs. The teams that are making explosive plays and not giving up explosive plays. We talk about winning the battle of field position. And you look at the other night, we ended up winning it by 7.5 yards. If we don't make a poor decision on return a punt, we win it by about 70 yards. As far as just the flipping the field and understanding, for our players to understand the importance of field position. We talk in terms of winning the fourth quarter because we're going to play probably 7 games this year. They're going to come down to a one-score game in the fourth quarter, and we're going to have to win in the fourth quarter. And then we talk about playing great red zone offense and defense because last week came down to the red zone. We had to make a stop in the red zone to win. We made a stop in the red zone to force a field goal, and then we had capitalized on 2 opportunities in the red zone offensively to score 14 points. So those are the 5 things that we talk to our team about every single week that are really important. That, the 2 most being turnover margin and explosive failure ratio.
Coach, your buddy Corey Miller, who's with his son, obviously for surgery, wants to know if you're going to be playing more nickel or dime against Missouri, and if Bryson will be playing more DN this week.
More than likely, and we'll mix some packages. We're obviously, very thin in some areas, and so we've got to be able to mix and match some personnels. That'll be, we'll find out Saturday night.
Will, to go back to the headset snafu, did you guys order new ones? Was it just something that happened? I mean, how do you address it this week?
It's been addressed a lot, but I've told that they're going to work. But we had three preseason scrimmages. They worked, and then I was told that they worked before the game until we got on the sideline. Then they didn't work. So now we've got backups. We've got the cord stuff that they used in the 80s. And then they said it worked. It's a brand new system. They came out and told everybody in our league that there's a new frequency in every stadium. And I'm not very electronic, so I don't know all this kind of stuff. But that we had to buy this new system because it was, if you didn't, then you couldn't communicate, which we didn't need in our first game anyways. So I don't know why we bought the system, to be honest with you.
Was it something in the stadium, or did you guys take these headsets?
I have no idea. I mean, it's not even worth explaining it to me because I have no clue what they're talking about. Plug it in and turn it on. That's what I would do.
Any other questions? John? John, down in front.
Do you feel this team's more equipped to go on the road and succeed, not like last year, and have some struggles?
I do because of the experience at quarterback. I've always felt like that was an important factor on going on the road, is having that position be a calming factor for your team. So I certainly feel more comfortable there. But I do feel like, defensively we do have some experienced guys that have been on the road that have, understand the importance of this is an SEC East game. It's the first step to Atlanta, and we need to do a good job of preparing right for the game. We talked about last year, winning on the road the first week, and the second week we didn't play very well. So that's something, I've talked to our team about today.
After reviewing the film, what kind of stood out about what Eldridge Thompson gave you, and did he talk to you guys at all, or did it come up about his family kind of being back in Houston?
Yeah, we've talked to his mom and sister, or I've talked to him about his mom and sister, and they're doing okay. So obviously our thoughts and prayers with that whole situation is horrific, what's going on there. But his mom and sister are doing fine. Yeah, I thought he played well. When his opportunities needs to play more Saturday, and he will.
Hey, well, do you find, going back to the road games for a second, do you find that it's harder to go to Missouri than, say, Knoxville, Tennessee, just because it is so far away? Does that affect your team at all, maybe the extra travel time at all?
No, I don't think so. I mean, then, you know, I don't see it being a big issue, no.
Any other questions for Coach?
All righty, thank you.